Hello there, it's Jason from the Weather Window, and thanks for joining me. This is my first recording for the European Outlook for Jason Weather Window YouTube channel. I'm also going to have a little sneak peek at Christmas. We're 2 weeks away from the big day itself, so going to have a first little look at what's going on there. Now, do bear with me in this video. It's the first time I've done it in this format and screen sharing as well, so wish me luck. Hopefully I'll get more proficient at it and as time goes on. So just going onto the screen share, let's see if I can do this. And nope. Let's try again. Screen share. New screen share. We'll try one more time, shall we? New screen share. Okay, so I think that's us here now. Thanks for your patience there. Okay, I'm going to guide you through the charts from the ECMWF, the European model, and I'm going to take you through the surface pressure anomalies for the month ahead. I'm going to have a little look at the 500 millibar pressure anomalies as well. So essentially there we're looking at whether there's going to be high pressure or low pressure on the surface, and the 500 hectopascal charts are looking at the atmospheric patterns and the wind flow, if you like. Then I have a look at the temperature and precipitation anomalies. And I'm going to end the forecast by looking at the latest GFS run for the Christmas week here in the UK. So let's begin. And I think where we'll start is, I think we'll start is with pressure charts. Perhaps. There we go. Thanks for your patience once again. So let's have a little look at the pressure, mean sea level pressure charts. I'll talk you through them. So green extrapolates to low pressure, and very nice, pretty colours here from the ECMWF. The pink is high pressure. You can see there's a northern blocking feature at the moment, high pressure in the northern latitudes. And what that's doing is forcing the jet that little bit further south. So the trough of low pressure over the UK extends into France and into northern Spain as well. And you notice as well that there's green colours across the Mediterranean. So it's unsettled in this next week to come in the Mediterranean, with showers, longer spells of rain, thunderstorms for places, but it is becoming milder. The reason it's becoming a little bit less cold in the UK is this little area of pink here was the Siberian high, and the extension of it, which has kind of retrogressed and moved westward into northern Scandinavia, part of it, a portion of it towards Greenland, and another area of it, another portion split, and it went eastward into Russia. That's allowing the green blob you can see there to move in. And as it does so, it's introducing slightly less cold conditions into the west of Europe. And I think by Monday or Tuesday next week, I think we're looking at mild conditions. Not as mild in Scotland as it would be in England, but nevertheless, I think the temperatures will be a couple of degrees above normal as opposed to below normal where they've been for the last 10 days. And I think that mild weather is going to extend into Europe generally. A little bit unsettled, quite mixed in a number of locations. So just skipping a little bit further forward, there you can see the northern blocking feature, that pink area has intensified. That's quite a promising chart for the Christmas week. It's suggesting that there is a possibility of more of a north or a northeasterly, possibly easterly flow, especially over northern Europe, and perhaps going down, extending into northwestern and western parts of Europe. The Mediterranean remain rather unsettled, rather mixed with showers, although it does look a little bit drier for Greece, a little bit drier for Central Europe, and a lot drier for Northern Europe as well. Let's take you into New Year week now, and you can see that high pressure beginning to slip down south and eastward. So I think as we begin the New Year period, it's possibly going to remain cold for the north and west of Europe. But as this pinky high pressure area begins to slink south and eastward, I think it's generally then going to become a little bit less cold towards the end of New Year week in the UK. The rest of Europe is looking pretty settled away from the southwest. So Spain, Portugal, and perhaps southern France still having some mixed or unsettled conditions there. A little bit of a change as we move into January. West low pressure comes in off the North Atlantic, and that high pressure area has went right down into the south and east of Europe. That's mild to me. That's a mild southwesterly flow, dry in the southeast of Europe, dry in many central areas of Europe, but northwestern areas becoming mixed and unsettled during this period. So I think what we'll do now is I will take you on to the 500 millibar height anomalies. Okay, so these anomalies are quite interesting. It's the upper atmosphere, and I'm going to show you the pole view down in just a wee second, but this is just recapping on what I've said. There's your trough of low pressure to the southwest of Ireland and into Western Europe. There's a high pressure to the north and to the east, and this time stamp takes us up until the winter solstice of the 21st. Christmas week, the high pressure becomes more of a feature to the north. The low pressure coming further south, so the jet stream's definitely displaced there. Possibility of a cold snap for Northern Europe, Northwestern Europe in Christmas week. I think the southeast of Europe should be quite mild and quite dry. In fact, more unsettled weather for France, Spain, Portugal, and the Western Mediterranean. Moving you on into the New Year week now, you can see there's still some upper high pressure around Scandinavia, Greenland, but it is slinking down into the southeast of Europe. So that's the transitional week from cooler weather in the north and west of Europe to becoming a little bit less cold as the Atlantic tries to get back in. And there you go. High pressure, the middle of January, has become established in Central Europe. That's got all the signals of mild weather written all over it for the UK. There's low pressure to the west, high pressure to the east, bringing the winds up from the south. Okay, let's give you the pole view down. Let's have a little look. I'm always looking at the Arctic, summer or winter, just to determine how things are. So taking you back to the first time stamp, the current time stamp up until the solstice, there's the North Pole there. Just look at all those orange colours. Extensive northern blocking. To get a cold winter, that is what we need. That's the only way to have sustained cold weather in the UK in particular. The only caveat here is that it extends down into southeastern Europe as well. And with this week, because the trough of pressure is down to the south and high pressures to the east, we may well have a mild week in the west of Europe, where the winds tending to come up from the south, perhaps the southeast from time to time. But high pressure is looking quite dominant over the pole. So let's see what happens over Christmas week itself. There you go, still dominated by high pressure. Greenland, Iceland, Scandinavia, high pressure. It's a little bit of a Scandi high. Just looking at the shape of the lines there, the elongations of the lines there seems to be a ridge just to the west of Norway there. So that again, as I say, potentially cold, looking really quite promising if you like some cold seasonal weather around Christmas and New Year. The high pressure's just slipping off the pole there for New Year's week and coming down into more southeastern parts of Europe. But there's still a bit of high pressure there. That's the transitional week that I spoke of, but it begins cold and maybe becomes a little bit less cold into the west of Europe. What's happening as we move further into January? Yep, you can see low pressure beginning to come in towards the pole and the North Atlantic. High pressure centred over Central Europe. Southerly winds mild for the west of Europe, probably a little bit less mild than previous weeks in the east of Europe. And just running you through it as far as we can go. Yeah, it's remaining mild according to this ECMWF run right into from the middle until the latter stages of January. Okay, let's have a look at the precipitation anomalies throughout this period. Okay, so we'll just take away the metrogram there. That's quite interesting actually, running up again until the solstice, because These orangey colours here suggest drier conditions. So notice that that's associated with high pressure. So Iceland, the west of Norway, western Scotland coming out drier. That is indicative of an easterly wind. Closer to average in east of Scotland, rainfall-wise, but wetter than average to the south and southwest of the UK. That extends into France, again down into Portugal, Spain, North Africa, and the western Mediterranean, whereas most parts of Central Europe and Eastern Europe remain drier than normal, and as we saw, a little bit milder than normal too. The Christmas week, okay, you can see the high pressure there, the orange colours, drier precipitation anomalies, and I say precipitation because of course it could be snow at this time of the year. Notice there that there's green in Western Russia and Northeastern Europe, so that's definitely snow. Definitely. And do you notice those little green blobs just at the North Sea there? Again, that's telling me that there's an easterly wind. It's dry to the west, not entirely dry, but drier compared to normal. And because of the easterly wind blowing across the North Sea, showers developing. Those showers could be wintry, especially in Scotland and the high ground, but not exclusively so. I think it's quite dry for the Netherlands, cold and dry. Still looking unsettled for Western and Central Med, indicative of that displaced jet stream, low pressures running in that direction there. Wet as well for the Balkans, the very west of Greece. The Greek islands, the Aegean, looking drier than normal, as does Turkey and into Western Russia. Let's take you on into the New Year week. Again, you can still see a little bit of that high pressure hanging on with the dry anomalies there towards Iceland. So what this pattern in general is showing, I'll just go back, it's more dramatic during Christmas week, is what we call a negative North Atlantic oscillation and a negative Arctic oscillation. And this is the opposite to what we would normally have. So this setup allows high pressure to establish round about Iceland and Greenland. Of course, you remember last year we had rain and wind the entire winter without any cold snaps. That's because the opposite happened. We had a positive Arctic and North Atlantic oscillation, low pressure around Iceland and Greenland, southwesterly winds, ridge of high pressure to the south towards Spain, mild, wet and windy. This is the opposite to that. It's very interesting. So we've got a negative AO and a negative NEO. High pressure to the north and lower pressure to the south. Displaced jet stream, Mediterranean looking more unsettled. And as we established, that's still hanging on right at the beginning of the year. But as I take you through it in the first week of January, the first full week back to work week, you can see the greens coming back into the UK and a little bit of green just fringing Western Europe, from Scandinavia down to northwestern France, northwestern Spain, and to the west of Portugal. So it's becoming unsettled, it's becoming a little bit milder. Notice the orange colours in Central and Eastern Europe, and at last the Central Mediterranean is becoming dry as high pressure begins to slip down into the southeast of Europe. Shall we go a little bit further into the middle of January? Pretty indiscernible signals, to be honest with you. Does look like there's a little bit of high pressure out there in the Atlantic. It looks as if the low pressure's moved a little bit further east, because you can see it there over central and northern parts of Europe, a little bit drier towards the southeast of Europe, the Greek islands and the Aegean in particular. Okay, let's finally have a wee look at the temperature anomalies for Europe. There we go. This chart here. Okay, so there's your mild week, and say becoming milder. But towards the end of the period, towards the solstice, you can see the blue colours just coming into Ireland there. You can see them there as well. There's a cold pool of air north of Greenland and in Scandinavia. So if we get the winds in from the north and east, it could be chilly. So I'm thinking low pressures here is bringing a lot of mild air into Europe. The orange colours of the UK suggest temperature 1 or 2 degrees above normal, perhaps. The blue colours in Ireland, a degree or 2 below zero, but most of Europe is maybe between 2 and 3 degrees above normal, up until mid-winter's day. Christmas week, there we go. Colder air moving right into the UK, across Ireland, across the whole of Scotland, the northwest of England, and Wales into the southwest of England, and it extends down the western Atlantic, and it goes right down into the Azores. So there's clearly a northerly or an easterly flow. And look at the cold pool of air there over northern Scandinavia and down into Norway. So if we do get those winds into the northeast, which is possible over the Christmas week at some point, it could become pretty chilly indeed. Still warmer than normal in the south and eastern of Europe. So if you want dry, warm weather, or as warm as it can be during the midwinter period, a holiday in the southeast of Europe is what you're after. So if you're in Greece, it's looking good for Christmas. And if you're in the UK, it's looking that we are possibly on the knife edge of something a little bit colder than normal. Okay, New Year's week, it becomes less cold. Temperatures back to normal there. And the whole of Europe actually is cooling down a little bit, even in the southeast of Europe, a little bit less warm than it was in the previous week. And if I just run you further in to January, there's the milder weather. As I said, the low pressure coming in, some signs of a little bit of cool coming back into the North Atlantic. And if I run you on a wee bit further, you can see that temperatures go back down to normal round about the middle of the month. There's more cold air there though to the south of Greenland, towards Iceland, and the western and northern Atlantic. So we're flirting with the idea of cold weather. Okay, just to sum up what's happening with Europe at the moment, we've been influenced by high pressure. It's been colder than normal. There's been snow in the first 10 days of Europe as well, especially in the Alps. But what's happened is that the high pressure, the block, the Siberian high that ridged into Scandinavia and Central Europe is now receding, and it's allowing the Atlantic to come back in. So it's going to become less cold for the UK over the weekend, the west of Europe, and then it's going to become milder at the beginning of next week. It's going to rain for most of the week. Eastern areas of the UK probably being drier, most places having rainy days next week. But as we run into the Christmas week, there's a possibility the high pressure builds more to the north, the northwest, and the northeast of Europe, settling things down, pushing the regime south, the Mediterranean unsettled. Europe, which will have warmed up, will begin to start to cool down, especially in the northwest. That continues into the beginning of New Year week, and then we become a little bit milder from the west as we move into January 2021. Unsettled in the western side of Europe, drier for the south and east. Greece is a place to be. It always is for me. Greece is a place to be if you want warmer than average conditions and drier conditions over season's greetings. So, talking about Christmas, let's have a little look at the UK. This is going to be my first little sneaky peek at Christmas. It's 2 weeks out, so a lot can change. Very interesting model runs. I'm just going to show you the GFS, I think, in this particular video. Some of the runs have come off really cold. Some of them are a bit mixed. It seems to be that we're on a knife edge right now, as we often are when it comes to cold weather in the UK. And that's why we don't pull it off that frequently. We maybe have a cold winter every 3 or 4. We maybe have a severe winter once or possibly twice a decade. Many winters are completely mild. Some winters we have a bit of a mixture. This looks like one of those winters where we have a mixture, and cold snaps are certainly possible, like we've just witnessed the end of November, beginning of December. Of course, if that was a month on, it would have been brutally cold and there would have been a lot of snow in the UK. But the beginning of December is just that little bit too early for us to get anything significant in terms of the white stuff. Okay, what's this chart doing? This is the UK, as you can see. And what I've done here is I've included the 850 temperatures. It's about a mile up in the atmosphere. And that's the reason I've included them in this particular forecast, is just to give us an indication of whether we're going to get rain or snow. So general rule of thumb, where you see those yellow colours, that means the temperatures a mile up are 0 to 5 degrees. It's impossible for snow. Absolutely impossible, no matter how cold it is on the surface. If those upper air temperatures are a little bit Warmer, if they're 0 or above, it's not going to snow. Absolutely no chance. You get a freezing rain, but there's no chance of snow. Between 0 and -5, we can have snow. So you can see there, and we're beginning on Sunday, the 20th of December. You can see there that most of the UK is bathed in the green colours, and the upper air temperatures, the 550 hectopascal temperature, -2s, -3s for Scotland, -2 for Ireland, -1 for the north of England. I'm just going to move you forward. And here we hopefully, keep going, there we go. That's where we were. Yeah, a little bit colder from Sunday. So Monday there's Tuesday, kind of -3s right across the country, -4. That line there is a -5 isotherm. Now, when that comes across us, there's a greater than 50% chance of snow reaching sea level. Okay, so that's the difference. So when we're in those orange colours, there's no chance of snow. The green colours, well, it just depends on other parameters of the atmosphere, such as the dew point and the temperature on the ground. It can snow when it's -3 or -4. Notice the -5 line, isotherm, just there, to the west, to the north, and to the northeast there. And I've included as well the pressure charts here. That's a bit of a northerly, and here it is a northwesterly. Okay, let's move on. And you can see today they're developing a really vigorous area of low pressure on Tuesday the 22nd in the southwest. It's quite cold ahead of that. Notice the -4 isotherm here. So as that runs into cold air in the northern and eastern flank, there could be a little bit of wintry precipitation. It's too far out for me to be certain of that right now. But notice the -5 isotherm is dug further down from the west, and it's done the same in the east. In fact, the temperature's -7 and -6 there over the Northern Isles and also in the Western Atlantic. So what's going to happen? These colder from the northeast and the northwest trying to get in. You can see the yellow slipping south, so we're all in the cold air. The flow there is a northerly. It's a northwesterly for Scotland, and it's a northeasterly for England. As we move on to the eve of Christmas Eve, staying cold. The -4 isotherm there to the north of Scotland, -3s and -2s elsewhere. Still a little bit mild on the southwest of England. As we move on to the eve of Christmas Eve, okay, there's a little milder push of air coming up there. On Christmas Eve itself, that milder air is getting pushed east. -5 isotherm there. Most of us are just below 0 there, but this area of low pressure is generally bringing in mild or damp air. So I don't think there would be any snowfall on Christmas Eve, I'm afraid to say, on this run at least. Low pressure is moving through on Christmas Day, and you can see there that we're poised for cold air on Christmas Day. So low pressures was kind of running across the south of England, that displaced jet stream. There's your -5 isotherm, where snow has a greater than 50% chance of reaching sea level. And you can see -6s and -7s there. To get a beast from the east, the upper air temperatures have to be about -10 degrees. So that would prevent us from getting above 0 during the day. So that's Christmas Day. Here's Boxing Day. There comes the cold weather. There's the -5 isotherm coming into Ireland and the west of Scotland. And you can see some pretty cold air there, -7, for example. Scandinavia, -9. And just moving through Boxing Day, we do bring the -5 isotherm through the country. Low pressure centred just to the north of Wales. So that's a southeasterly flow for the east, and it's a northeasterly flow for the west. There could be snow. According to this particular run, on Boxing Day because we've got a low area of low pressure and we've got the -5 isotherm through the majority of the country. And if I move you on to later on, uh, Christmas Sunday, you see that area low pressure deepens further. England and Wales are still well within the -5 isotherm. A little bit less cold for Scotland with a northeasterly. It's probably bringing the air in and a little bit of moisture off the sea. Still, wintry potential is possible. Let's look west because everything's coming from the west here, and you can see the -5 isotherm again to the west. Isn't it looking interesting for the Christmas period? We're on a knife edge. I'm going to bring you another update. I'm going to keep it to a Christmas update and let you know maybe what a few of the other models are favouring at the moment for Christmas. Thanks for being very patient with my first video here, where I'm trying to screen share and share and get used to the charts. Excuse me. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you again soon. Thank you and goodbye.